Wyclef Jean, BKS1 Radio. Let's go.
This is Essence Atkins, and this is BKS1 Radio.
Hi, this is Nova Moore, and you're listening to BKS1 Radio.
Yo, check it out. What's the deal? This the chef. Giving a big shout out to my peoples. Big KS, you already know what it is. Salute.
What's up? It's your girl Monifa, and I'm hanging with BKS1 Radio.
Hi, I'm Iyanla Van Zandt, and you're listening to BKS1 Radio.
BKS Radio, baby.
Hey, this is Jasmine Guy for BKS1 Radio.
What's going on? This is Lamont Rooker, and this is BKS1 Radio.
Shout out to BKS1, the best kept damn secret in the business.
Hey, what's up? This is Raven Goodwin from BET's Being Mary Jane, and shout out to BKS1.
Hi, this is Leon. You're watching BKS1 Radio.
BKS1. God bless y'all.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Owl Show right here on BKS1 Radio. It is your girl, Latoya Cindelle, and I am so happy to be back in the building, in the studio on this Tuesday evening. And guess what, everybody? We are talking about Plainfield. If you're not from Plainfield, no, I'm just joking, everybody. But no, we are going to be talking about Plainfield tonight, and I'm extremely excited to be talking about the city where I am from and the city where I reside tonight. And we're going to be talking to one of the candidates for city council tonight, and we're going to be getting down to business. First and foremost, though, you all know that we're always on this healing journey, so we can continue to talk about that too, and you guys can talk to me in the chat. So let me know what's going on in your healing journey and how you're doing, and we're definitely going to get back to it next week. But this week, we're getting into politics a little bit, everybody. That is what we're going to be doing. I have the pleasure tonight to interview the amazing,
Honored.
the absolutely amazing city council, what do we say, candidate for the city of Plainfield, 1st Ward and 4th Ward. Y'all, I didn't even know what ward I lived in. 1st Ward and 4th Ward candidate, Miss Cindelle Harris Blackmon, everybody. Yay. Can you all please clap her up? Welcome to the show.
Latoya, thank you for having me.
How are you?
First of all, I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like we're talking about Plainfield.
Yes, we are.
So we gonna talk about Plainfield.
I'm excited. I'm from here. Are you
too.
from here?
I'm from here.
All right. So
I am from here.
I am from here as well. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I want to get down to the nitty gritty.
Yes.
There are a lot of changes that have been happening around the city. So if you are from here and if you grew up here, you know that there's a lot of changes that have been happening around our beloved city. And some people have questions, and a lot of times we want answers, and you are here to do that tonight. So you ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So our question number 1,
Yes.
which has already been answered, and just to let everyone know, we had the candidate that you're running against was at the station as of last night, and we asked her the exact same question. So to be fair, I'm going to ask you those exact same questions as well, just to give people the autonomy to hear what both candidates have to say and the autonomy to vote on who it is they feel.
And that's important.
Answered the best.
That's important.
So number 1, we already know, was how long have you lived in the city of Plainfield?
Forever. So I guess I can give you just a small backstory. My parents are from Panama. They moved from Panama to New York, had me, a beautiful baby, by the way. And then after that,
look, let me go clap that up.
I love it here. I really love it here. But yeah, and then after that, we moved here. I was 2, 3 maybe. Went to Little Hearts Learning Center.
Oh.
Then went to Evergreen. Went to Maxon.
You went to Evergreen?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
You know my mother.
Who's your mom? Should we know now on air?
Yes, my mother was Miss Jones, the secretary in the
oh
office.
My God, Miss Jones!
That's my mom. Yeah.
How's she doing?
I will talk after the show.
Okay. Oh my God! Shout out to Miss Jones.
Yes.
Wow, I remember Miss Jones.
Yeah, that's my mom.
She used to give amazing hugs.
My mother, she's something else.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, I'm Plainfield through and through. Went to all of those schools. I only left to go to college, and then I came back, started working. I'm from Plainfield. I'm Plainfield.
Okay, all right. That's question number 1, everybody. Yes. Okay, question number 2. What made you want to run for Plainfield City Council?
Yeah, so I think the gist of it is that I was tired of seeing people do what they wanted to do with Plainfield. I was tired of seeing Plainfield being sold off to the highest bidder. And I had to have a conversation with myself about how, like, and Toni Morrison talks about this all the time. And if you don't know, I'm an English professor, so I have to bring it back to books and literature and movies and all that good stuff. But Toni Morrison always talks about this idea of, like, you can work for these people, but you have to come back to your community and use the same skills out there and here. And after a while, I started realizing that, like, yeah, all of these people can run what they want to run, but, like, you know what goes on in Plainfield. You've seen what's been going on in Plainfield. You fight for Plainfield when you're outside. If someone says shout out to Plainfield, New Jersey, I'm the first one hopping up and down. Woo, that's me. So, you know, it was time for that. I think I was very fed up with how Plainfield is currently running. And when I'm noticing how Plainfield can change, I can just see that this seat, this 1st and 4th Ward at-large seat, is so important. And this election is so important. So I think that was one of the things. Mama Toni Morrison came up to me and was like, hey, sis, you could work for all of these people and you can do all of this stuff everywhere else, but it's time for you to come back home.
And coming back home, what does being from Plainfield mean to you?
Being from Plainfield means to me that I'm who I am because of this place, right?
Explain that to everyone who's watching right now.
So I've been on tons of boards. I've lived in different countries. I've represented tons of companies. I've earned tons of money for companies, on behalf of myself. I run a business, and I am who I am. My soft skills, my leadership skills, who I desire to be is because of this town. I can remember certain points in my life where I'm like this because of where I'm from. I'm quick and witty because I remember sitting in the high school lunch tables, cracking jokes on people. And you know that feeling.
That's a skill.
It is
that's a skill. That's a skill set.
And I don't think that people know that, right? So, like, when I teach my students debate or, like, English 101 or English 102, I'm teaching them the skill of what I was when I was back on those tables.
At the lunch table.
Cracking jokes on you. It's one of those things. And so, like, from a granular point, now that I'm, like, an actual professional, an actual adult, everything that I am, who I am, I owe it to Plainfield. I owe it to Plainfield. There's nothing else much more than me owing it to Plainfield.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, owing it to Plainfield. So the next question is, what are some of the things that you see in the 1st and the 4th Ward that need improvement?
Yeah, so this entire campaign, I've been telling people, and people have been relating to this idea of 1st and 4th Ward being the heartbeat of Plainfield, right? Like,
explain to us. Look, I just said in the opener, I didn't even know what ward I lived in. Explain where 1st and 4th Ward, how we do this. Where is that at?
So if you think about it, and in Plainfield terms, it's almost like part of the East End and part of the West End. Does that make sense? So they, on a map, they coincide with each other. So they're, like, literally the outskirts of Plainfield. 2 and 3 are, like, in the middle. But it's part of the East End and part of the West End. And I wish I had a map so I could just be like, yeah, here it is. But it's pretty much part of the first. The first ward is part of the top half of Plainfield, and it's the bottom half. And so in these wards, you have working class families. You have the most children in all of the wards in the 1st and 4th Ward, right? You have people who sometimes cannot feed their families the next morning. They don't know where food is coming from. You have people who need to look for transportation to go to work. There's some people who have a couple paychecks or 1 or 2 paychecks away from them trying to figure out what their next move are. These are, like, serious areas that I believe. There's the downtown areas in the 1st Ward, right? All of these things are super duper important. And so when we talk about improvement, we need to talk about revitalization of downtown area, right? And I love to tell people this. I'm from Plainfield, and I'm going to be very candid about this. If you are having friends come to Plainfield, you're like, hey, you know, I always go to your downtown in this said place in Montclair, in Westfield, in Scotch Plains. Come to my downtown area. What do I have? What do I have? And no shade to the businesses, right? Because they need support. They need resources, right? What do I have for that, right? On a very, 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 like, granular level. Children are walking to school, and they're walking past beer bottles on the street, right? There's trash collection that needs to happen. There needs to be proper communication with these types of services that are already in Plainfield, right? We talk about that. We talk about children. They don't have proper opportunities to do recreational activities. There's nothing to do for the children. And this is what I'm hearing at the doors, right? I go to the 4th Ward and they say, Hannah Atkins is not open. Hannah Atkins is having issues right now. How do we support Hannah Atkins so that our kids in the summertime can take showers after they get out of the pool like every other pool in the city? Right? Mm-hmm. What else do we have or what we don't have? All of these things are needed to be improved, right? And there's money, there's resources, there's time, there's manpower, and I think it's time for us to kind of uproot that and transform it. And so, yeah, that's my answer to the 1st and 4th Ward needing improvement.
Okay. And so what are some of the solutions for that? So we need the improvement. Mm-hmm. What are some of your solutions?
So I'm very big on research, and it would make sense. I'm a grant writer full time, so I need research and I need data to collect. And I'm really big on assessment. I think that we need to assess things, and I think that we also need to bring the proper people in the rooms and in the tables to have these conversations, right? Crime is a big issue. Crime is a thing that people like to talk about. We need to bring the people who are experts in crime to talk about it, right? Traffic is a big issue. We need the experts in traffic to tell us what we need to do. And it's assessment, it's collaboration, it's communication, and then you also have to get the community involved. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a really big issue right now in city council. I don't think that the community is talking with the people who we elect. And as a person living in the 1st Ward, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I don't like that I'm paying my tax-paying money for you to sit on a board or a meeting and you're not allowing people to have proper public comment. Things in city council are unprofessional. People are saying things that they shouldn't be saying. It's disrespectful, right? Mm-hmm. And it's time for people to have some professionalism. The standard needs to be changed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where I drift off to that with your question, but mm-hmm. I think that I'm very clear with what I'm saying in terms of making sure that there's communication and there's like collaboration and making sure we have the people solution. At the tables. Yeah,
that was a question, and like you said,
very effective solution.
Communication is a part of the solution. I want to just go off of some of the questions that we have right now. You keep mentioning community, the people, community. I've noticed over the years, Plainfield is almost broken up into 3 or 4 different communities, not wards per se, but communities. You have your folks over here that kind of do this, your folks over here that kind of do that, your folks over here, and everything is kind of split there. And ironically, when we all come together, we'll say, "Oh, it's one Plainfield," but it's really not.
No,
it's really not.
No.
What's behind that?
I feel like there's a moral issue happening that we need to kind of subside. There's morally things that are wrong. People feel like they have not been heard. People feel like they've been not at the table of conversation, right? And another thing and another looming issue, I hope I'm not going past your questions, but when we talk about like all of these developments coming up and all of these people who are planning to come into the city of Plainfield, we're forgetting the people that already has been in Plainfield. I keep hearing people wanting to sell their houses because they don't feel like they've been heard. You know, and when we talk about these 3 kind of like silos, the reason is because people have these like really, really deep sentiments about what's going on in Plainfield.
Okay. It's unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate. You mentioned it in one of the other questions where you said, you want people to come to your area and people to come to downtown areas. And you notice in other cities, in other counties sometimes, where they're a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
And you want that from your own city.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've left and came back. I gave the whole alchemist thing where you go and you find who you are and you come back to the same place that you left. And I'm here now and I'm like, I want this to be just as attractive as every other place that people plan to move. And to be honest, when we talked about like the genetic makeup of the 1st and 4th Ward, and I know you said you don't want to talk about healing, but I think that we should have conversations about politically healing. What does that look like?
Oh, absolutely.
And when we talk about women who heal, I'm thinking about the Black and brown moms who have to earn check to make sure that their children are going. Like, all of that stuff is, like, interconnected. It's important. And so, like, yeah, I want people to come here. I want people to heal. I want people to feel like they can belong. They can stay. There's no silos. Everyone can kind of coexist. That's important to me.
That's going to lead us into our next question.
Ooh.
So some of the residents feel that the city of Plainfield is getting too congested because of all of the new apartments that we all have been seeing that have been built all around the city. I want to know from you, do you feel like it's a benefit or is it harming the city?
So a couple things. Number one, I want to be very clear about this question, right? So all of these new apartment buildings they're not fully vacant. They're not fully filled yet. Most of them are vacant, right? And we're already having congestion issues in our town. I live around the corner from here. It took me 15 minutes to get here because, Bergman was backed up. For me to just drive around the corner, that's an issue, right? And so when we talk about traffic and we talk about parking and we talk about congestion, again, it's about assessment. We also need to start researching other towns that are just as dense as we are and figure out what solutions they have and what we can do and what we can bring to the table. Unfortunately, the apartments are here. They're here to stay. We have no choice but to keep the apartments, but we need to now know how to work with these apartments. So now we're dealing with two different entities. The first one is there are going to be new people coming to our town. The second thing is there are people already here in our town. What do we do to make sure that these two things, these two communities are able to coexist? Because everyone wants to live. Everyone wants to be able to be comfortable, and we have to figure these two things out. And it's assessment, right? We need to talk about traffic. We need to sit down with the people in traffic, and we need to say, what do we do? How are we comparable to these other towns that are just as dense as us? What are they doing, and how are we going to do it? And it's simple.
So you may not know the answer to this next question, but just, current resident, taxpayer, why apartment buildings and not businesses?
That's my question.
Okay.
That's always my question. I feel like if we're soliciting all of these all of these developments, why can't we solicit businesses? Where is the nearest grocery store? We have Twin City, we have Suprema. Where is another one? Where are the franchises, right? We want people to come here. What is going to attract Plainfield residents and Plainfield non-residents to say, ooh, I want to stay here, I want to live here?
Right.
What do we have?
Right.
And so this idea of because we have a Department of Economic Development. We do. And economic development means we want people to come, but we also want people to stay. We need retention. We need to figure out how retention works.
Yes.
Right? We need to figure out, there are entrepreneurs in the city of Plainfield, like myself, right? How is it, or how can we make sure that these business owners are properly accommodated? When you do that, you bring in jobs. Right? You bring in youth with jobs, right? We have a summer youth program happening where kids can get employed, which I love because I did it before too. When I was 14, I put in my working papers. I sat in City Hall and I waited for everybody to get interviewed. I got interviewed. I got a little camp counselor position. I thought I was cool and cute and I was making a little bit of money. But we should have more opportunities for the rest of the students here too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the questions asked by a city resident was about loitering around businesses, street corners, and in residential areas. What solutions do you have for these issues?
Loitering, oftentimes, we have to think about root problems. A root problem to loitering is what? Not having access to money, right? Social issues, right? All of these things need to be addressed before we can talk about loitering, I believe, right? Because if we think about it, if you want the cops to come to a business and, oh, hey, you can't be here, that starts more uproar than us trying to find solutions and ways to uproot a problem. We need more activities. We need people to be busy so that they don't have to loiter or they don't have to feel like they're being loitered, So I hope that answered the question.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to start finding ways to uproot these issues. We need to find solutions for them.
Okay. The next question is similar to this, but I'm thinking I probably know some of your answers about this one too. Homelessness and mental health issues are becoming a major concern. What type of program would you suggest to help combat these issues within our community?
Yeah, I talked about retention, and I'm thinking about there are currently services in the city of Plainfield that deal with mental issues, that deal with unhoused populations, that deal with all of these things. And I feel like we need to start taking a look at them. We need to start assessing them. We need to see what works in those, what doesn't work in them. And there's experts in those buildings, those communities, and we need to see what resources they need, what funding they need to make sure that these programs succeed. I'm starting to realize that there's a lot more people who are becoming unhoused. There are more people who we are seeing who are having mental issues, and it's not that, they are less than us or they, did something wrong. I mean, it's a thing, and we just need to figure out how we can retain the current infrastructure that we have, how we can properly figure out what is working well and what's not working well. We need to research and see what other mental institutions or shelters or any other communities that, help these services kind of work and make sure that we're doing the same in Plainfield.
And are we doing it with our officers? So those who have sworn to serve and protect, if we have a city full of folks who are homeless or, have some sort of mental illness, are we making sure our officers are trained to be able to help these individuals?
Yeah, so not to toot my own horn, but I'm about to toot my own horn. I'm happy to just let you guys know that I was endorsed by the PBA, and I'm very, very give me one of these audience claps.
I love it.
Yes,
I love it. Yes.
That's huge for me. And I think that's huge for me because
I love it. Go ahead.
We can have some fun today.
Yes, look, I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm happy because I feel like in order for us to keep our families safe, to keep Plainfield affordable, right, to keep Plainfield attractive, to keep Plainfield competitive, we got to start looking at our first responders, right? And if our first responders is backing this campaign and they're saying, hey, we believe in what you're going to do for this city and we're here for you, we're here to have conversations with you, that's important to me. And so if we need to have a conversation, not even just a conversation, a check-in, hey, how's it going? I think that there's, an uptick on what's going on with our unhoused populations. Is people properly trained? Do we need resources? How can city council find ways to, make sure that we approve resolutions to get the training that you need? That's fine with me. It's about making sure that you have these proper connections. And again, that goes back to what I was saying with leadership, right? So like, if someone can pick up the phone and call and say, I can call my city council person right now, similar to when you in school and you like, I'm going to call your mom right now. It's the same exact way, right? If you can call your city council person and say, hey, we have issues with this. How can you help? And I can find ways, effective, practical ways to do that. That is what makes community. And that is what makes Plainfield to me.
I want you to explain politics to a lot of people. A lot of us, no, seriously, because a lot of us, people think they understand. People say, oh, the mayor, you have a number of people that don't vote, that then sit back and complain. But I want you to pretty much, can you break down the structure of the position that you're running for?
Yes.
What it is your position's supposed to do and how it operates with the mayor in this particular city.
Yeah, so for starters, when you are looking at campaigns, and this is me putting on my professor hat, right? When you're looking at campaigns, you have to think of a couple things. Number one person can't do everything, right? No one man can have all this power, right? That's why the United States has proper checks and balances in government. No one said that they were right. We see things happening on CNN and all that stuff. But in terms of local politics, local politics are even more important because you have a mayor, you have city council, right? And then you have constituents, right? Or your people, right? So what ends up happening on city council is there is a board of 7 people, right? So if I am a resident of the first ward, I know that I have a first ward council person, right? I have a at-large person. So there's a first ward council person, second ward, third, fourth, fifth, all the way. I'm sorry, first, second, third, and fourth, right? Then after that, you have one for the first and fourth ward. That's the position I'm running for. And then you have an at-large position for the second and the third ward. Then you have one final position for a council person at large who is, I don't want to say oversee, but they have input on all of the wards, right? And so everyone works together, and you're supposed to be the representative of this ward, right? And so what you do is you say, hey, I'm a first ward person. There is too much trash on my street. I'm going to call my first ward city council person, right? And I call them. You get support from them. You also get support from the at-large person, right? So your first and fourth ward person. So there's 7 people on council. If you lived in the second ward, it's the same thing, right? And so what they do is they work in alignment, all 7 of them, to make sure that they are producing resolutions, they are passing bills, they are checking budgets that are for all of the people, but they also pay special attention to the people that they represent. So this position is very interesting because for a very long time, we've had resolutions that are passed, that are, when we talk about developments, right? When we talk about all of these things that people don't like, they're passed because when you look at the votes, there's usually a 4-3 majority vote in favor.
Explain that. What's a 4-3?
Yeah, so if you have 7 people, you usually have, and this is just regular poli-sci, there's usually an odd amount of people voting for something so that there's a majority vote, right? So if you had 4 people voting and 2 people say yes and then 2 people say no, who said right? And when you think about like on a very like national government level, oftentimes you have like the vice president who will come in and be that like majority voter. But here we have 7 people. And so you have 4-3 votes. Whoever is the majority, sometimes it's 5-2, sometimes it's 7-0, sometimes it's 6-1, whatever, you know? But whoever has the majority, that resolution gets passed, right? Whatever's on the ticket, whatever's the agenda. And so what I'm running for is a very important position because, and so for a very long time, people have felt like this 4-3 vote that continues to go on in Plainfield City Council is in favor of an administration and of Plainfield being sold to the highest bidder. And now what this does with this position is it puts someone in place that is an independent thinker. And I don't use independent too loosely. I'm saying independent thinker because there's no attachments to anything. People are not, their developers are not funding my campaign, right? There are not people, entities that are funding this. It's an independent, I'm a voice of the people, right? Like people say, hey, $10 to your campaign, right? Hey, a few dollars here. Hey, I support you. Hey, I'll knock on doors with you. Those are the people that I'm running with. So if I'm independently thinking and I'm like, hey, I know that the storage unit on the corner of Garfield Ave can't be put there because someone lives there, and what will end up happening is something will happen to their house because I spoke to them about this. I'm not going to be in favor of that, right? Or I'm not going to put forth a resolution or agenda or something of that sort where I know that it can harm the people of Plainfield. And so this is important because what this does is it shifts the dynamic of city council. There's no more silos, like you say. Now there's an independent voter that can vote for the people. I hope that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
I also
it
keep
makes
looking at you because I'm closer to the camera.
No, that's
Okay.
it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna go back to some of these buildings because you know I'm asking the same questions that were asked last night. What do you suggest the city do with the vacant buildings and the lots around the city?
So we have to think about Plainfield as a whole, right? If there's more people coming in, right, and there's more families coming in, I have to think about children, right? And when I think about children, I'm thinking about school buildings to house these children, right? And so I'm thinking when it comes to vacant buildings and vacant lots, we're going to have to house school children in school buildings eventually, right? We have to make Plainfield more attractive when it comes to businesses, right? All of these things are great options for the vacancies in the city. Do I believe we need more apartment buildings and apartment like housing? No, I don't believe that. I feel like we are over capacity. Plainfield was not built to have this much density. And so now that everyone is here and we are all having a merry good time, we're going to make it work, but I'm not for more. I'm not. Especially when I'm hearing that there's students in trailers and we're trying to find bigger spaces for them, right? We need to think about the vacant buildings so that we can build up schools, we can build up people. When I'm thinking about businesses and I'm thinking about enterprises, I own a bookstore. I would love to have an entire building where downstairs is a bookstore, upstairs are workshops, the top floor is an after-school program. I want a building for that, right? That becomes a place where people can have jobs. I need tutors, right? I need booksellers. I need baristas for the cafe. I need all of that stuff. I'm thinking about how we can economically develop Plainfield. And I hope I answered the question.
You did.
Yes.
You did. And so, because we have still factories that are left here that are taking up blocks, taking up space. And it's like, and what do we do with them?
Yeah, right.
They're becoming eyesores. There's nothing to do with them. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Can you suggest some things that would help bring in more jobs for the youth? You just did.
Yeah, I did. I did. And shout out to my niece. I'm going to give her an audio. If y'all want to pay me to stay here, I will. Just hire me. Y'all talk about jobs for the youth. I am the youth. Hire me. I'm gonna shout out my niece because she's currently trying to get into the youth employment program herself. And I'm just thinking about I'm just thinking about all of the kids who want jobs, and I feel so bad that there isn't that many jobs for all of them. And so, yeah, making sure that we revitalize downtown and we start talking about economic development for businesses and not so much for apartments, right? How we can retain businesses, how we can retain entrepreneurs, how we can retain budding entrepreneurs is how jobs for adults also happen, but also jobs with youth. It is like just a circle. It's basic sociology.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I completely agree with you. Like you said, there needs to be more activities for the youth.
More activities.
There needs to be more that they can do. There needs to be more programs. Yeah. We need more of everything. And so definitely, like you said, the more businesses that come, the more jobs, the more programs, the more that we can do. One of our last questions, that I have to ask you before I get to all the ones that I want to ask you, just so that everybody knows that. What makes you the best candidate for the position of city council, and why should residents vote for you?
So I think it's very, very simple. If you want to keep the status quo in Plainfield, you do not vote for me. If you want change, transformational change, you vote for me. A no vote is a bad vote. A vote for me is a vote for transformational change. A vote for me is for you to be heard, for someone, a leader, to finally, you are able to hold a leader accountable for. That is a vote for me. I think the last thing is I'm Plainfield. Someone called me the other day the daughter of Plainfield. I'm like, yes, I am a daughter of Plainfield. So, yeah. I've known the city through and through. I knew what it was. I knew what it can be. I knew what it has to be. I have all of the experience because also that's a thing that's being brought up. I have a lot of experience in what I do. I just lead with leadership. I don't have to lead with telling people what I am or who I am or what I do or how many degrees that I have, because that puts a power shift in people. So I am a leader. I am a leader who listens. I'm a leader that wants people to hold me accountable. And yeah, most importantly, I'm from Plainfield. That's important to me. This is my favorite sound. This is my favorite sound.
All right, listen. Okay, so now, look. So now, listen. Now I can throw this out.
Yay!
All right, here we go. We're done with those. We are done with those. So now I want to get to the nitty gritty with you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to start with something you just said about experience.
Yeah.
What about experience runs a city?
What about experience runs a city?
What if other people are saying that they have, so much political experience, how does that help in the city of Plainfield?
So I'm gonna do a nice small lesson about fallacies, right? I'm an English teacher, so I have to do this, right? And so a fallacious statement, there's different types of fallacious statements, but my favorite one is a conditional fallacious statement where you compare apples to oranges, right? And so if you have experience, you don't have experience in working in city council. No one has experience in working in city council, right? So when it comes to experience and what type of experience, the experience you need is the experience of listening to people. The experience is relying on people, trusting on people, and saying, I know all of the players that I need to get this onto the table and make sure that I need trust is experience. All of these soft skills, right? Communication, properly communicating with people, not being aggressive, not being
able to relate.
Absolutely.
You have to be relatable.
And for everyone. And this is another thing. I will be the first Afro-Latina on council. I am Panamanian, right? So representation to me also matters. And I'm listening from everyone in every different language all the time. So experience to me is listening. It's communication. It's proper leadership. It's not all of these things that you did in the past, because I could bring them up. There's rap sheets for that, but that's not what I'm leading with. That's just for me. That's me, who I am. I'm not leading with that. I'm leading with, can you trust that I'm going to make good decisions? Yes, you're gonna trust that I make good decisions. So then we ball. That's it. We in this together. I'm from Plainfield. I know what you're listening to. I know what you're talking about. Let's figure out ways. And if I mess up, because I'm human and I make mistakes, you need to be able to call me out and say, Cindelle, you messed up. How are we gonna fix this now? Because you messed up. And you have to rely on that. Experience is common sense. That's the experience that you should be running with.
Okay.
Nope. You
okay. answered. You answered.
Right.
You definitely answered the question. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you is everybody's talking about the buildings.
Yeah.
You go on social media, everybody's talking about the buildings. You go over to Wawa, everybody's talking about the buildings. Well, I haven't been to parent teachers conference in a while. My kids are completely grown. But, prior to that, years ago when my children were in school, look at what they're doing with this building over here. And what every single conversation in the park I've hosted every single parade, all of the concerts in the park. Everybody's talking about the buildings. How do we get Plainfield residents in the buildings?
And I'm so glad that you said this because that is the problem. So imagine you in your house, right? And you have a house coat on, your old house coat, and someone walks up in your house with a brand new house coat on. And you like, how you get that house coat? Oh, don't even worry about it. I just got I got the house coat here, right? I think that the issue is Plainfield is noticing that people are coming into the city and being able to afford housing and space that they want opportunity for. We don't keep Plainfield affordable. Again, we're talking about making sure that we go forward because no one is saying that these buildings aren't popping. They look great. But we also
can't live in them.
Right. So retention. How are you pushing me out of my own city is how people are feeling. Why are we not making these buildings affordable? Right? Why can't people in Plainfield get to experience the beauty of Plainfield? It's the Queen City, right?
I would, I'm a homeowner, but what if I wanted a new apartment overlooking whatever it is?
Yes, there's
would
a
I be
corner
able
one.
to afford it? And I live here. I work. I don't work here anymore, but my family did. My son is a fireman in town. My mother was an educator in town for 40 years. I'm on council for our film festivals.
Yeah.
I'm hosting parades. I work here at the station. Everything I do is in town.
Everything.
But you mean to tell me if I wanted an apartment, I have to leave?
Yeah, and so I'm also thinking about my first responders because this is so important to me, right? You become a first responder, you're making minimum wage, and that's also another thing. Right now, our first responders are fighting for contracts, and some of them are going into arbitration because they can't even get competitive enough like the other towns in other places. And yet they have to still deal with high rates of crime and high things that are going on in this very dense community. I become a firefighter. I'm making $36,000, right? I want to live in the city of Plainfield, but I can't. It's mandated for me to live in the city of Plainfield. And I can't because I can't even afford these apartments that you are building. What am I to do? How are we supposed to progress if we're not even comfortably making things work for the people who need to be in Plainfield, who want to be in Plainfield? That's not fair. You can bring in all you want, but then you have the most loyal people leaving.
Yes,
and every time I speak to people, every time I'm at the door, it's just so funny to me because people are like, I've been planning to just put my house on the market. And they're hesitant. I've been planning to put my house on the market. Right? Don't tiptoe out of here. I've been planning to put my house on the market, right? I'm trying to leave. I'm getting ready to leave. And people don't want to leave because they love this place so much. And how are we going to keep Plainfield safe? How are we going to keep Plainfield affordable? The beauty is there. The buildings are there. No one is saying that they are bad, but we need to make sure that we are properly accommodating the people that we need to accommodate in Plainfield.
If you're just tuning in, it's your girl, Latoya Chanel, and I am sitting here with candidate for 1st and 4th Ward, Miss Cindelle Harris Blackmon, and we are just going through a series of questions right now, just trying to get some information before, what date are we voting?
June 6th.
June 6th.
On or before June 6th. There's early voting a couple of days before that. If you have your mail-in ballot and it's just sitting on your table, my opponent, she came on yesterday and she spoke. You are now listening to me. You make the decision that you need to make. If you have, a dusty little mail-in ballot somewhere, make your decision. You saw both of us, educate both of yourself on both of us, and you make your decision. That's important.
And your opponent's name is Miss Julian Cherry, I believe. Yes, she is also a candidate for 1st and 4th Ward. She was interviewed here last night. So like Ms. Harris Blackmon just said, you have now seen both candidates. We have asked the exact same questions. You can run it back, listen, and you can vote for who you believe should be in office.
Absolutely.
I have more questions for you,
I
though.
have more answers for you.
Okay, all right, listen.
This is fun. Can y'all bring me back again? Like after the election, please bring me back.
Absolutely,
I love this.
absolutely.
Okay.
So prior to the show, you and I were having a conversation. How would you restore Plainfield to its glory?
Oof.
And I say that, so for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who are transplants, there's a lot of history in the city of Plainfield.
Very much so.
You ever wonder why there's still the garage over in the new CVS parking lot across from what used to be Muhlenberg Hospital?
Come on.
There's history there.
Yes.
That garage is where Henry Ford had his first vehicles. That is why it cannot be torn down. That is why there's still a garage sitting there. There's so much history.
I'm even thinking the neighborhood house when there were the riots in Plainfield and people felt like that was a safe haven for them to go to kind of just recharge before they went back out. They assembled at the neighborhood house. We talk about the Drake House. That was where one of the most important presidents slept for a night when he was on his voyage, right? There's so much. And shout out to the Second Ward because they make me remember that the Historic Preservation Society is also very, very important to the city of Plainfield.
Absolutely.
The architecture, beautiful. The way the houses were built, beautiful, beautiful. We have so many good things and historic things. I'm sorry to cut you up.
No. Go ahead. This is about you. This ain't about me. I could talk all day. This is about you. So yes, like you said, acknowledging the Historic, Preservation Society. How else would you restore Plainfield to its glory?
So let's be clear. I can't do everything, right? You need to have people that are alongside of you to do this together, right? I'm only 1 vote out of 7 votes, right? But if there are things that are practical and they are very, very easy to break down to say, I have no choice but to say yes to this, is where I stand. I'm very big on like efficiency and effective things, right? I am a business owner. I find the best ways to send out the invoices that I need to send out, right? Everything is practical and everything is effective in my life. And so bringing that to the community is what we need. It's an asset. It's a value to the community. So in order for us to restore glory, you need to elect the proper people to do that.
Yes.
It starts at the voting ballot. And what makes me upset is last election, 10% of the community voted. And I go on like all of these group chats with Plainfield and like everyone is like so upset about things. And I'm just like, you have to vote. And you got to vote for the right people. And if you don't vote for the right people, you think that the dangling carrot in front of you is attractive or it looks nice or it sounds nice. But are these people willing to put up what they know and how they believe and their like actual ideals to the city of Plainfield to change it and restore it back to its glory? I want restoration of Plainfield. I want it to be the Queen City. I grew up here trick-or-treating during Halloween on Evergreen Avenue, and I used to love it. I'm like, these houses are huge. I can't wait till I get older and I can afford one of these houses. I can't wait till, like, I have my children, and I want them to trick-or-treat down beautiful Evergreen Avenue. Like, all of these things are important to me, and I want them to be just as important to everyone else at that voting ballot, for sure.
Can I ask a question, personal question?
Very
You
personal.
said your family's from Panama.
Yes.
You're bilingual.
I am bilingual.
Next question. You ready?
I am bilingual. And just to I am bilingual. I go to Panama, twice a year?
Okay.
My family is here. And it's funny because when I was younger, people used to clown out about how they would come into my house and it would sound like a bodega because there's always salsa playing and my mom is always making plantains and frying fish and all this other stuff. I am very much Hispanic and I'm very proud of my ethnicity, and I'm very proud of who I am, and I'm very proud. I like to call it, I love being in language purgatory. There's some days that I can't speak English really well, and there's some days that I can't speak Spanish really, really well. That's things that I'm very proud of. That's my identity and how I fit into the city of Plainfield.
Ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
Your ideas on bringing the city together, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. We have a huge LGBTQ population. We have a huge Latin population. And historically, we have a large African-American population. Historically, we typically had a Jewish population in Sleepy Hollow. What are your thoughts to bring everyone together?
No one is together because no one is heard. I always say that. When I'm a teacher, and this may not be true in certain silos, right? But when I'm a teacher, what's important to me is how do I get the kids who are below reading level with the kids who are on average and the kids who are above reading level? And the answer is you put them all together. You find ways for everyone to connect, right? And I'm not going to say let's all hold hands and we're going to walk down Park Ave and sing Kumbaya. And at City Hall, Gandhi, a hologram of Gandhi will be there and he'll be sitting there waiting for us.
Yes.
And we all sit in a posture and then we
yes,
like meditate.
This. Yes, I
no,
love it.
it's not that.
Let's
But
do
it
this.
is ways for, because we have to coincide with each other.
Absolutely.
There's no ways for us to there's no way for us to do what we have to do without, and that means that everyone has to be heard, right? Like, oftentimes people stay in their silos because people don't know or can appreciate or can't listen to what's going on with other populations of people. And it's funny to me because I feel like I'm like a hybrid, right?
Right. And that's why
yes.
I asked the personal question.
Yes.
I asked the question if you were bilingual. We are so divided.
Yeah.
5 miles and we are completely divided.
Yeah.
And as you drive through town, you see it, you know it, you feel it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always felt like the hybrid, but I always felt like I was able to say, hey, I know that these people like the same thing that you like. I know that these people like the same thing. How about we just have one together, right? And so it doesn't have to be like I don't know, like, hey, one time every year we have to get together and have a kumbaya moment. It's how do we find ways to make people
to incorporate all?
Yes, yes, absolutely. No.
Okay. So.
No.
Okay. I wanted to go some more on the togetherness first before we go on the apartness. But yes, no, I just really wanted to focus on that a lot because, again, there are two main things that everyone who's a lifelong resident of Plainfield talk about. Number one lately has been the buildings, and number two has been the division of either African American folks, Latin folks. You have a number of transplant LGBTQ folks who are here, and the division. Everyone has their own festivals. Everyone has their own events. Everyone has their own everything, but it's one 5-mile town. And what I'm really, really concerned about is who we're going to have in city council that is going to care about all residents.
And I mean,
and that's important.
Yeah, we have to do our part. So, like, even at city council meetings, there's no translators available for people to.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And so, if I'm someone who knows Spanish majority, why would I come to a council meeting where people are not even talking to me? Right? Mike, is there a mic drop here somewhere? Is this one of these? Dropping the bombs, right? So it's that, right? It's like, how can I feel welcomed if people aren't accepting of it? And let's be very clear, because I also hear this a lot too. It's like, these people done came to our town and did this. It's like, first of all, it's not just Plainfield, right? Right now we're having a great migration happening in the world. They're calling it the browning of America. Right? People are changing, right? Things are changing. Things are looking different. But we need to make sure that we all can coincide. No one is like weird. Hispanic people aren't aliens. Because I always hear it about Hispanic people and black people, right? No one is like pointing the finger and saying y'all are weird. It's just making sure that we are welcomed, right? And people are feeling welcome, and we are welcoming to people. And I feel like that's a moral issue that needs to change.
It does.
Yeah. A policy issue is y'all better hold hands and y'all better walk down like Park Ave, right? A mandate. But this is a moral issue that we're dealing with. And we're not just dealing with it here in Plainfield. We're dealing with that everywhere.
Right. And then, like you said, part of the answer is making sure that everyone's being heard, but you can't be heard if no one at a council meeting even understands what you're saying.
No, there needs to be representation.
Yeah.
There needs to be representation. There needs to be advocacy. People need to feel comfortable talking to their city council person regardless of who it is. If there's someone who's calling me and saying, hey, in Spanish, where are the resources for me to find a place to live? I need to be able to do that. They need to be able to feel like they're comfortable. And I'm saying they in the terms of people need to feel comfortable in terms of calling their city council person and saying, I need advocacy, I need representation. That's what we're here for.
Right.
If we're not doing that, then we're not doing our job, and there's no reason for us to be on city council. There should be no hidden agendas, and this is obviously in a perfect world, but on a very serious level, if you can't commit to knowing who your constituents are and working for them, then what are you doing here? And people need to start asking that. But when you have people who are coming and making public comments and councils is shutting it down, you are only limited to 4 minutes to speak to people, and you are only limited to 56 seats in a council meeting. How can you hold people accountable if they're restricting more and more and more for you to openly say how you feel?
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with you.
No.
So...
No, you don't have to say it. We good. We good.
Okay. Listen, I want to know. One of my last questions for the evening. First and foremost, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah,
we only have about like 8 minutes or so left, and I think this was really good, and I think this was definitely something that we needed to hear because. I think unfortunately, everybody's talking about the buildings and everybody's talking about the division between African American folks and Latin folks. But what we don't realize is that the buildings are going to bring in a slew of other folks as well, whom we don't know what that is. And I'm not talking about ethnicity. I just mean you're going to have you just don't know.
Don't know.
And so if we're already divided by LGBTQ, Latin, African American, and Jewish, now you're going to have a slew of other folks who are going to come in and inhabit all of these vacant buildings. And so now we're going to be divided even more. The buildings did not create community. It created more division.
I agree.
And that's going to be that's a huge issue.
That's also a socioeconomic thing. If I feel like I could not afford to live somewhere because I stayed in the city, and there's some people that can, I don't, that's, you talk about race issues, you're talking about socioeconomic issues, you're talking about like serious things if we can't figure that out.
Yep.
As a community.
Yeah.
And of course I'm not Gandhi. And I mean Gandhi he didn't save the world either, but we all have to put in our part. And your part, people who are watching, is to vote for who you believe in. This is me outside of being a candidate. You need to believe in who you are voting for. You need to be asking questions. You need to be asking proper questions. You need to be asking personal questions that when the person speaks and they have conversation with it, if there are solutions that you can attach yourself to, that you believe in, that is important. June 6th, you got to vote. And it can't be 10% of Plainfield residents. It has to be everyone.
Right.
June 6th is more important than the November election.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. What does a perfect Plainfield to you look like?
A perfect Plainfield to me is always seen when I go to jazz festivals, when I go to house music festivals, when I go to multicultural festivals, when I go to the festivals behind, what's that, Front Street in the parking lot where Aaron's is across the street. That is the perfect Plainfield to me, when everyone is together and everyone is jumping and dancing. And again, I have to bring this back to just books, right? So in the book Beloved, in Toni Morrison's book, there is this there's this scene where it's called The Clearing. And there's someone standing up and they're saying, men cry, women laugh, children play. And you feel this like spiritual like awakening happening where everyone is together. And I'm not saying that we're having a kumbaya moment or anything, but we need to be able to effectively communicate with each other in this women cry, children play situation. We all need to be together somehow. And if that means we need to be holding it's just like a family. If you did something wrong, you got to hold me to it. You made a mistake, right? But we got to move from it. And I think one Plainfield looks like putting the proper people in office, making sure that people's voices are heard, making sure that the community shows up politically, socially. They show up at parent-teacher conferences. They show up at board meetings. They show up at every single thing. And we all be able to advance. And we all are represented. And we're all able to collaborate. And that's one Plainfield for me.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to read a few comments, from people who have been watching. So thank you to everyone that tuned in tonight because you wanted to hear what was important and you wanted to hear what our candidates have to say. So we have, let's see, Dan was saying he loved the question about how are we going to bring our rich diversity together. That's what we kind of touched on.
Shout out to Dan.
Shout out to Dan. Leah Caldwell said, yes, we are a melting pot. And it's a beautiful thing. No one should be left out. Yes, you have to vote for. Yes, you have to vote for you to be heard. Yes, you have to vote in order to be heard. Someone else was saying get out and vote. The most important part is to participate in democracy. Someone was saying, they were talking more about downtown Plainfield and why are we not building that back up? We live in Plainfield and we have to leave to do everything.
And let's be honest,
which you touched on
shout
earlier.
out to the businesses that are in Plainfield and are downtown, right? They are staying downtown. They are our business owners that have been here for years. That's how they put money, in a roof over their heads. They put money in their pockets. But visually, downtown is an eyesore. There needs to be an uplift, a nice little facelift.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And we need to be a little bit more modernized. And it's not to say kick all the business people out of downtown. That's also very crazy and problematic. But it's also to find entrepreneurs and make our downtowns compatible.
Yep.
Competitive. I'm sorry.
Yes.
We need to make our downtowns competitive. We need to bring back jobs in the city of Plainfield. If we're building all of these developments, there are construction workers in Plainfield that are also able to do those jobs. We have people in Plainfield that have the talent and the skill set to do the jobs here in Plainfield. I had the skills to be an educator, and I came back home and I was an educator here in Plainfield. I had a job here in Plainfield. That's how it needs to be. That's important. So yes, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, you are 100% right. Yeah. So, listen, thank you to everyone who put all of the comments in the chat. Thank you to everyone who was watching tonight.
Yes.
And this was amazing.
Yeah. Vote June 6th, column C. C for change, C for Cindelle, the longest name on the ballot. Cypher don't get gas, drop them bombs. Together is crazy. I love it.
I love it. No, seriously, this was amazing. And thank you for answering all of our questions. And I hope that you all will get out on June 6th and you are making an informed, educated decision with whom you are voting for when you get into that booth. Thank you so much, Cindelle Harris Blackmon, for coming in this evening. Of course.
Loved it.
For coming in this evening. This was absolutely amazing. This was awesome. And to you out there, if you were able to watch, whether you watch this on Facebook, YouTube, listen to us on TuneIn, or if you're going to listen tomorrow on Spotify, we thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. God willing, next week we'll be back here. Same time, same place, different show. Talk to you all. Yes. Oh, we're going to have a side-by-side comparison because I asked a lot of questions that were asked to Miss Harris Blackmon's competitor, the Julian Cherry, the night before. So please look out for the side-by-side so you can hear both candidates answer the same questions, again, so that you can have an informed and educated decision on who to vote for. Yes. It's a long night, y'all. But listen, thank you guys so much. I love you all for watching. I love you all for listening. And I'll be back here, God willing,
thank you,
next week. Bye, everybody.